we're live. Welcome to our ranch, A.G.F.C. Welcome, my friends. Come on in. This electronic pub doors are open. Grab your favorite drink, your favorite seat. Sit back with us for a while. We go with word, have our Bible study. And then we go over a little bit something from Pyramyd Air. So here we are. First in the chat is May98. Welcome, sister. How are you today, girl? And then Mystic 22222. Okay, I'm kind of sort of semi-ready. All right, let me get into here in the studio in the chat. And we, like I said, we got May98 saying hi, brother. Doing good, doing all right. Mystic 22222. He says he's semi-ready. Well, that's all right. I'm not completely ready myself. I'm kind of been dealing with German Shepherd all weekend, and just kind of he got me wore out a little bit. Just kind of waking up from a nap after a whole day with him. So yeah, let me hold on a second, Mystic. Let me get you your link. Doing good, eating dinner. Okay. What y'all having for dinner tonight? I think we're having cheeseburgers again. Mystic, there you go. There's your link. You go ahead and pop in whenever you're ready. So yeah, we're going to continue our reading on Revelations, guided by our good friend Mystic 22222. Going to be giving us insight and educating us on the prophecy of Revelation. And with no further ado, I don't have your picture, Mystic. I don't got no video. There he is. With no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wherever you are, whenever you are, wherever you are, watch this broadcast, this live stream here at our Ranch Air Gun Fund Live, Mystic 22222. There he is. Hold on a second. Let me get you in the right screen there. Mystic, how are you, my friend?
Like I said, kind of, sort of, semi-ready. I'm the one that needs to be ready, not you. You were ready just by the fact that you made it online on time.
Right. Which isn't an easy task sometimes.
Yeah. Try changing the feeding tube on a toddler, which is what I had to do 50 minutes ago, which is the kind of interruption I've had all week. Which is why I'm not entirely ready here.
Mystic,
I more or less have a presentation ready. Yes.
You have a child on a feed tube.
Oops, we've lost your voice. It is a permanent feeding tube, or semi-permanent feeding tube, from when it was shortly after it was born. It refused to eat with female nurses. It would only feed with male nurses, but the doctor's in there, so they went ahead and installed a feeding tube. And so we've had been living with that ever since, and they've never decided she was ready to go off of it. There's a lot going on with that in the background.
There is something for a prayer request. There is something for a prayer right there that we will be praying for her.
My prayer for her is that it be permanently removed before the tribulation begins. That's my concern. It's just like when I was at work for a long time. I had to work one extra year in order to earn enough to have my eyes laser repaired, so I would no longer need glasses or contacts. Because once we're in a post-industrial society, I can't get glasses or contacts, and neither of those last very long. And I can't be. Well, I was utterly blind without them.
I hear you.
And now
I hear you.
And now my vision is twice as good as normal. In other words, I have twice as many. I have twice as many receptors in my eyes with perfect focus. I can see twice as far as most people.
Great.
So, yeah.
That's what I need to do. That's my next thing. Once I get this thing with my spine taken care of, I got to get these things taken care of.
Absolutely.
These are not prescription glasses. They're just readers, and I'm blind without them. I need to get me some prescriptions.
I tried to convince Mac that he needed to have his eyes surgically repaired, and he didn't see the need. No. Because it's funny, he's always blaming his marksmanship, which is actually really quite good. But he's a perfectionist, and he knows he's not perfect, and so he puts it down to that. And I know what that's like because that's how my vision was. But he makes enough money to have, and he gets good health care that he can have that done. He needs to have it done now while it's available.
Yes, he does. I agree with you. So, with no further ado, what do you say we jump right into a word of prayer, and then we're going to start into chapter 4, right?
Yes. Chapter 5, actually, because chapter 4 is... Yeah, chapter 4 we kind of skip over because it doesn't really tell us anything except about the hierarchy of heaven and how the offices are arranged, and they're in language that we don't even have a code for, so we don't really know what those are exactly. If anyone is watching this now or in the future thinks that they understand chapter 4. Please leave it in the contents. We're wide open to whatever interpretation you want to throw at it.
Tell us. Leave it in the comments. Yeah, tell us. Because, like Mystic says, it's a lot of code in there.
It's roughly half and half. There are code words mixed with plain text language. And really you can see this nowadays with almost everyone who's managed to stay online by learning to speak in code that goes over the heads of the AI. And some of them, especially, for instance, the modern day prophets, boy, they really get tongue-tied and they stutter, and then they start saying the strangest things. But if you follow them very carefully, you can figure out what the euphemisms they are using in place of what they want to say.
Yeah. Hey, May, I'm not forgetting about you, sister. I know your signal's not strong enough to jump on, and that's fine. I'm just happy that you're here, girl.
Yeah, May.
And
you have to weigh the different dangers. The biggest danger I see coming is the fact that once we're in an apocalyptic time, especially, but even just post-industrial, once you can't get those things anymore, you're essentially blind at a time when your survival depends on staying out of some people's way and finding other people and finding food and just being useful to people in general to trade for things you need.
Excellently said. I agree with that.
And the technology is actually almost flawless. The procedure is not actually done by the doctor. The doctor tells the computer exactly what he wants done. The computer does calculations in 1,000th of a second. It makes precisely the reshaping of the cornea to get the results needed, and then it takes another look and it sees what it needs to change, and it does that 4 or 5 times per eye, and there's almost never a backlash. And I found that I only needed 24 hours to regain my. I actually got out of the chair and just walked out on my own because I could see where I was going better than I could see with glasses. And there was just a little bit of eye irritation, but which cleared within a few hours. I did have to put dark glasses on to drive home because your pupils are dilated. But other than that, I was perfectly functional. And I was supposed to take about a week before to fully recover. But in 3 days, I had to take the NASA sight test to be certified by NASA for, several different things that I had to be able to see.
Well, mom's had the surgery twice now.
Yeah.
And she's doing good. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if my insurance is going to cover it.
And I passed the
I doubt
NASA
it.
test in 3 days later.
Cool.
It was a strain because my eyes were still slightly inflamed, still slightly out of focus, but I was able to pass that test 3 days, not 7 days later.
Yeah, I don't know about contact lenses either.
Well,
Because
I was forced into contacts because as my eyes were going out of focus in my early teens, glasses shrink the image according to how strong they are. And as my eye was moving out to 7 diopters, and my right eye was moving out to 3.5 to 4 diopters, the two images were no longer the same size, and I could no longer look at one thing with the same eyes. And that means I couldn't judge distance like when I'm driving. And so I was forced into contacts just at the time when they went to soft contact lenses. My eyes couldn't handle the hard contact lenses. And so from that day forward, every time my eyes became intolerant to something, the technology improved just enough so I was able to keep going. When I finally had to go in for surgery, the tiny blood vessels were growing across the front of my corneas, called neovascular growth, because my eyes just weren't getting enough oxygen from the air to breathe. And so it was growing.
Yeah.
It was growing circulation in there to keep it alive. But then it's starting to cover your vision, So, yeah, everything for me was a blessing, just in time delivery. And that was.
I just don't know if I could. I don't know if I could handle something foreign in my eye like that.
It's a second skin. The soft contacts are a second skin. They are 3/4 water or more, and they just they stick to your eye the same way that a water drop does. They're actually a water drop, and it just happens to be a water drop that maintains its shape. So do go and give it a try, because you'll get instant correction without having to have the surgery. Then you'll see what you will be able to see when you do have the surgery. But I wouldn't wait on any of that.
I will. Okay, I'll ask the doctors about it, because I want to get. I gotta get me either some prescriptions or contacts. I'm tired of these little readers. They're not helping me none.
Well, as soon as he takes the photometric measurements of your eye, he can pull a bottle down and you can put it right in and try it right then and there, and you'd be amazed. It just takes a little practice and a little getting used to. But it's just like putting a drop of water on your fingertip and then touching that drop to your eye. You don't even have to touch your eye with your fingertip. In fact, contacts actually protect the surface of your eye from irritants. I was once splashed with gasoline in both eyes. Yeah. Okay. And it took me all of about 20 seconds to reach in and take both contacts out like that. And all I ended up with is just a little irritation in the inside and outside corners of my eyes because the gasoline didn't touch my eyes. And then I had to have somebody drive me home so I could get another pair of contacts. But and they're cheap, by the way.
Lucky.
Well, I was lucky to be wearing the contacts. I was better than if I had gotten splashed just now. Highly recommend it. Yeah, I could do ads for contacts. I guess I just did.
Well, Mystic, May, if you guys want to, let's go ahead and bow our heads in a little word of prayer and get this started. What do you say?
Okay.
Heavenly Lord Jesus Christ, we come to you and we lift this live stream up to you today. We ask you to help us by having our eyes open so we can read these words and see them correctly, having our ears open so we can hear them, our minds and hearts open so we can comprehend them, understand them, and take it in as food for our spirit and knowledge for us Christians, us true believers, Lord, in you, to know what to expect, what is coming, and to truly understand it. I pray that you work through Mystic 22222. You work through us to send out this word through this live stream to reach as many people as possible. This is the whole meaning of it. God sent out as prayer warriors before you. Father in heaven, you have sent us out to spread this word. So I pray this in Jesus Christ's holy name. And Father, one more time, we also want to add a prayer in for Mystic's child that's on her feeding tube. We pray that that feeding tube is over with, is done, that they can have it removed permanently before the just as soon as possible, Father. In Jesus Christ's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So is there anything you wanted to add, Mystic?
Well, only the warning that my notes are a shambles. Most of it is shorthand. It was supposed to be filled with content, and I haven't really been able to fully fulfill that with content. It's also entirely out of order, so I'm going to be having to skip around my notes trying to put it back in proper order, and so there will be the little delays.
And you know what? Mm-hmm. God is leading this, so I think everything's going out fine.
Yeah, it may. I think there's a very good chance, though, we will have to spill over into next Sunday as well, though.
As long as many Sundays as it takes.
Okay.
We ain't stopping this.
Okay. Okay, so let's see.
We're going to start in chapter 5. Is that what you were saying?
Well, yeah. So what I'm trying to do is lay out how to look at Revelation more than anything else, because it is a big study. Took many hundreds of years of man effort. Well, not just man effort. Many hundreds of years, literally, of many men working on it, both intellectually and with the Holy Spirit to guide them. And much of it has been enlightened by Latter-day prophets as well. It is, in fact, one of the prophecies is that in these last times, the Holy Spirit will be poured out, and visions and dreams will be given to all kinds of people. And of course, along with those, because we're in a war, you also have to realize that there are some false visions and dreams. And so we have systems for sorting those things out, which you don't really have to deal with too much, because I can give you some excellent sources. They're very authoritative, vetted, and then they vet the others, or they discount them as being false, and they just give us the good stuff, and they sometimes warn us about the false stuff. So I will be including links to those things. YouTube doesn't allow us to put links in text here, so I will have to spell them out for you.
But YouTube doesn't allow you to put links in.
I tried to send you some links a couple of months ago, and I got a message back from YouTube saying links are not allowed in comments.
Really?
Yeah. So I can send them.
I don't know about that, because I follow several different YouTubers and that go on live to have their own live streams, and the host sends out comments and links yes. in his comments all the time,
because he's the host,
and plus the people in the chat. There's many people in the chat that send out links.
So they're just picking on me.
I think they're picking on you. If you want, if you want to try, you can go ahead and try it. Put it in the comment section if you want to.
Okay.
I give it my go ahead, and if YouTube decides to dock me because you put in a link, we'll know better.
Well, again, one of the main reasons for them blocking something is not just because they don't happen to like the politics. The biggest politics they do not like is true Christianity, or even true Judaism. They do not. They do not like Messianic Jews. They do not like Karaite Jews that follow the Torah instead of the Tanakh. Things like that, and they will block those.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I've disputed YouTube on several different occasions and won.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I am a Christian, a heavy Christian.
Yeah.
You know what? And nothing, not YouTube, nobody. I'm looking it straight in the eye. YouTube, nobody gonna change that. Nobody gonna stop me. So you go ahead. This is my show. You want to put a comment? You want to put a link in my comment? You go right ahead.
Okay. So we have many leagues to go and very little time. So here's how we're going to do it. And again, this is mainly so that I will actually give real prophecies as examples. I will give quite a lot of them.
Okay.
And that's not to be authoritatively declaring what the prophecies are. That's for people who have any criticism or concern or suspicion at all. I give them the source they need to go check it out themselves. Yep.
Correct.
That's my main goal here. I need to make it understandable enough so that you know how to research Revelation.
Well, and that's what sources are for.
Yeah.
That's why because if you're, they call it. We got to be careful of plagiarism.
Yeah.
So, and copyright. So that's what sources are good for. And if you got a source, a link source, put it down.
Yeah.
That's so okay.
So I went through the first 7 letters of the first 3 chapters of Revelation directly because there's not any interpretation in there per se. I could read the rest of it that same way, but then no one would have any particular reason to believe me. If I only give the interpretation methods, then nobody's going to have the time, and more than half the people won't really have the mental bandwidth to be able to do things like that. So I'm doing kind of a hybrid here. Okay.
Okay. All right.
And I'm going to go kind of fast. So like I said last time, I'm going to have to kind of go at my speed, which is roughly,
you go at your speed.
It's roughly 50% faster, sometimes double faster. Fortunately, all players can be made to play at half speed or double speed. They automatically correct for the pitch of the sound. You won't munchkinize anything doing that. And so what I want people to do is to kind of float along with me at this speed over the top of Revelation, looking at the 10,000 foot level view, to get a whole idea of how it comes together and how to look at it. Because even the way it's structured is a little bit confusing. There's 3 main sections. The first section, of course, is those church letters, which were 2,000 years ago. We're now about to start the 7-year countdown. So there's this massive gap in between. That 7-year countdown is about to start. But Revelation is not, per se, it is not the whole story. It is a synopsis of all the prophecies put together for the latter days. And as such, you would need to know all those prophecies, which I will bring in for you. So in order to understand it as a whole story, you have to read through Revelation, and then you have to fill that in with what you know about what has been said before. Some of those prophecies were very detailed. Some of them were a little vague, but a lot of them, they're actually. The more I look at prophecy, I used to think it was all symbolic. But then,
Yeah.
as news headlines have fulfilled those prophecies, I come more and more to realize and have the opinion that much of it is actually quite literal. But we simply didn't have even the concepts, much less the words with those concepts, to understand them until they finally happened. So, yeah, always remember that you can go back and rewatch this later. For now, just sit down with your coffee, your soda, and your popcorn, and only try to
Kick back.
and only
Grab
try
your favorite snack, your favorite drink.
Yeah.
Grab your favorite seat.
relax and try to get the gist of it. Try to get the gestalt. Okay.
All right.
So then, when you go back and watch the episode again, you set your browser to 50% speed or half speed, so you can follow along and then think about it. And as you do, you'll want to have a copy of Revelation in front of you to refer to, and then you can hit pause whenever you need to check it out.
Okay.
Now, I've got to switch documents here. So here's how Revelation is laid. That first section we've already covered are the 7 letters to the 7 churches in Asia 2,000 years ago. Now, this is only marginally relevant to our day, inasmuch as demonically influenced human behavior has not changed in 2,000 years, and we still need to recognize when our beliefs and institutions are in contradiction to God's ways. What we need to do with these letters is to read through them and see if we recognize these underlying beliefs and behaviors in whatever or congregation or leadership that we're with. Now, I am not suggesting that you immediately lead your current church. That is not what we are instructed to do. Instead, we are instructed to go to our leadership first and start asking questions regarding the apparent conflict between what God instructed those churches to repent from and the current doctrine or policies of your current church. The response we're hoping for is that the leader will look into it. It's unlikely you'll trigger reform in your church, but that's not the point. The point is that every member of the body of Christ must choose between obeying God or human authority. So only after you've done what the courts call due diligence and received that response, preferably in writing that you can copy and publish, that the official church policy is that they will follow the traditions of men rather than the law of God. It is your duty to publish such policy to the congregation by whatever means necessary, after which there is no need to leave that church. They will excommunicate you. Luckily, despite what churches all teach, your salvation is in Yeshua, in Jesus, not in a church. And excommunication is not martyrdom or even persecution. So learn a little courage from this. Now, having said that, you do still need some kind of fellowship because, especially in these end times, your mental and emotional health desperately need a support group, and you still need a Bible scholar to help you understand what you've never had time or training to study. Your membership in any given institution or study group may be a short one for the same reasons, but it's every bit as much your responsibility to spread the truth you know as it is the responsibility of the churches, especially since sorry, hang on. Dude. Something's going on here. Oh, I see what it's doing. Yeah, you'll still need your membership in any given institution or any group may be a short one for the same reasons, but it's every bit as much your responsibility to spread the truth. It is their responsibility for the churches, especially since they have not met those responsibilities and even betrayed them. In making that judgment for yourself, ask yourself this question. Are they actually teaching what Jesus taught and commanded his disciples to teach? Or are they just telling stories about the amazing life of Jesus? Are they teaching you how to love God and all humanity, even those who cause you grief? Or are they just selling a lake of fire insurance? Anytime your church gives you an opportunity to speak, just say those things you know your pastor should be saying and hope that he or she will get the hint and repent. That just might work. Okay? Almost any other approach is very likely to cause controversy, and usually controversy doesn't go very far in a church.
It turns into strife.
Yes, and they reject it. So
division.
What I'm trying to give is an approach that will not raise their ire, will not slam doors on their minds, and so forth. So that's what the first 3 chapters of Revelation, the first part, are for. The middle part of Revelation, 6 to 20, is what we're here to study and understand. It's a symbolic synopsis of all the other prophecies that describe the end times, giving a chronological list of events, but frequently referring back to prophecies going all the way back to somewhere around the flood. The last part from Revelation 21 onward are unincluded plain language descriptions of the end game. The rewards we can look forward to for playing our part in the most epic moment in all of eternal cosmic history. Times which are becoming, and I quote, great tribulation, which means very bad trouble, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be, from the eternity of the past to the eternity of the future. This is the most turbulent time. The worst time ever is almost upon us, and it's not just a time for faithfulness, it's a time for heroism. Okay?
Right.
Let's see. There's actually two ways I can go from here, and I didn't have time to decide which way to go. Which would you prefer? Would you prefer I give some of the prophecy codes, or would you prefer that I describe where the prophecies say we are right now on the calendar?
Probably where we are in the calendar right now.
All right. So I'm going to put up a big arrow here, and it says, you are here.
Okay.
So here are the prophecies that are happening in the news and in our lives right now. In Revelation, we have just been through, let's see, I didn't get that reference point, but the legal system of the beast is in place as of last week with Presidential Executive Order 14067, and we're awaiting the breaking of the first seal when the spirit of the beast is loosed from his prison to take possession of a human world leader and become the beast of Revelation. So there is a human who is evil, and then there is the spirit of the beast, which is also the same spirit as King Nimrod, who started the whole pagan religion.
Okay.
Confidence among Bible scholars and the current crop of visions and dreams is that today is the most likely date of this happening. This week. Today is the Feast of Trumpets. I'm sorry, it's Rosh Hashanah. Followed by tomorrow, the Feast of Trumpets. And there is strong opinion and or feeling that this may well be the year that the 7-year countdown begins.
Okay.
We're hoping not, because if it is, then we're kind of run out of time to get the message out.
Right.
So now, to those parrots who remind us that no man knows the day or the hour, they try to say, you can't say when Jesus will return. I say, pinky, pinky, pinky. Because
it's not parents. It's
not
quoted
parents.
by Jesus it's quoted by Jesus right out of the Bible.
Yes, not parents, parrots. People who copy each other.
Parrots. Okay.
Yeah, sheeple.
Okay.
Who quote him without really knowing what he's saying.
Okay.
Because he was speaking partly in code, which I'll explain in a moment. Right now, I'm not naming a day or an hour for that. Okay?
Yeah.
But the breaking of the first seal will name the year. It will be 7 years after that. Okay? And the announcement of the beginning of the Hebrew New Year will announce the day, even though that could come early just to prevent the complete extinction of mankind. Lo, I come quickly, lest there be no flesh left alive. But there is deeper meaning to that phrase, which we'll cover a little bit later. But for now, I just want to point out it's a true statement, but it's misleading, especially to lukewarm Gentiles who don't want to take responsibility for their own survival, much less their eternal destiny.
Right.
Okay. That phrase, no man knows the day or the hour, depends on the calendar. And the calendar, we're talking about the Hebrew calendar. The Hebrew calendar was lost to us when the second temple was destroyed in 70 AD. because the calendar has to be determined from the ripening of the barley, when it becomes Aviv, and when two witnesses at the Temple Mount can sight the new moon. And I explained that last Sunday. So that's what he's talking about, in as much as he can't name the day or the hour, because no man knows the day or the hour when the year begins. But as soon as you do know that the day and the hour that that year begins, then you know which days and which hours the feast festivals fall on, and all of the great things happen, all the prophetic things happen on those days. Yeah.
All right.
So, that the last days period, we know that began on Hebrew calendar and Jewish calendar, Nisan 10th, the month of Nisan, the 10th day. And in the Jewish calendar, it's the year 5947. Now, they are missing some years because it took a while for them to get back together and start putting together a new calendar that was calculated. It still has 30 days like the Hebrew calendar, but they calculate the days of each month. And so then they don't add an Adar bet, a second month of Adar. Many prophecies have happened, and of course on the Gregorian calendar that we follow, there is no direct correlation. So when great things happened, we didn't realize that it happened on a particular day. That calendar, the Hebrew calendar, was reconstructed by a man named Michael Rood, who spent a lifetime studying how that was put together. He went so far as going back to NASA, who had refined the computer calendar to fractions of a second by bouncing a laser off the moon to get the exact distance and the exact trajectory, and then they were able to fine-tune the calendar so that they would accurately go back through the thousands of years of the past to determine what days landed on days of the week, landed on what days of the month and year.
Wow.
And
that's fascinating.
Yes,
I had no idea.
Well, that's going to be one of the references that I'm going to give you.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons I hold him in high self-esteem. So once he had established or reestablished that calendar, he was able to verify it or validate it or vet it by going back through the last 100 years and seeing that all the great prophecies of the end times, which started a bit before that, all landed exactly on those prophetic days. So the last days period, we will say, began on the 10th of Nisan in the original Hebrew calendar, and that was May 14th, 1948 of the Gregorian calendar, and it's also the day of Pentecost on the Hebrew and Jewish calendar and Gregorian calendars all at the same time, which is a coincidence. Okay. Now, here's why that was important. I'm first going to read the prophecy from Isaiah 66:8, which says, "Who has heard of such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children." Now he's referring to Mount Zion, which is the home it was the promised land of the Hebrews. It was this Jerusalem, which is the actual the city is named for Jerusalem. It is the name with the city with his name on it. And travailing, of course, is the wailing of a woman when she is giving birth to a child. Okay?
Yes.
But as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. So here's what happened. 1945. Europe and the Americans and the Russians finally broke through the defenses of Germany and quelched the Germany, brought them to their knees, and freed the last remaining survivors of the Hebrews. They call them Jews. Well, there were only two surviving. I mean, there were only two tribes left, Judea and Israel. And they were split until they were scattered back in 70 AD. But when they were brought back, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. They brought them out, and they didn't know where to put them. No country wanted them because people have always hated Jews. Christians have been told that the Jews killed Jesus. Well, that's not strictly speaking true. In the first place. In the second place, it's always the leaders. Okay.
It was the Jewish church, the leaders of the Jewish church that killed Jesus.
The Sanhedrin, yes. And the Sanhedrin couldn't even legally do it, so they tried to get Rome to do it. And Pontius Pilate was actually a very just and good man.
He didn't understand why they wanted Jesus dead.
But more importantly, he did understand that Jesus was actually innocent, and he was not about to kill a bad man or a good man.
Well, that's why he even offered up Barabbas.
That's right. As a bribe.
As a bribe, but also he knew Jesus is innocent, and I think in his own heart, and his wife knew, in her own heart, that Jesus was who he said he was.
Yes.
They put they actually had the fear of God in them.
That's right.
Because they weren't sure, so that's why he went ahead and said, "Listen, I'll give you Barabbas."
Yeah.
You want Barabbas? And they said, "No, no, yes." They said, "Yes, we want Barabbas free instead of Jesus."
That's right, and he was a murderer.
And he was a murderer, a rapist. I mean, he was a god-awful man.
Yes.
He was. But but at the same time, Jesus' whole purpose would not have been fulfilled.
Yes. Now there is a parallel prophecy to this, and I do have it in my notes here somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me at this moment. But I know that you've read about it because you've read all the Bible at some point, and you remember that there was a question of Isaiah, I believe it was, shall these bones, or can these bones come back to life and live again? And he says, well, Lord, and so then he says, prophesy this to the bones. And this is exactly what happened here. When the Jews were pulled out, they didn't really have a home for them, because the Jews' home technically was in Jerusalem, but they were forbidden from going there. On the other hand, nobody wanted them back. Russia had just kicked them out. More than half of Europe had turned them over to the Nazis for slaughter, or had slaughtered them themselves with a nod from the Nazis. And so there was really nowhere for them to go. 3 years later, in 1 year, the newly formed League of Nations, which was formed, League of Nations was formed to prevent World War II after World War I. League of Nations basically fell apart and was reassembled as the United Nations. And this was such a big problem that it came up before them, and in less than 1 year, they went through they looked at all possibilities, and they put together all the paperwork, and then in one day, in less than 24 hours, they put it up. They made a motion, they got a second of the motion, then they put it up for a vote before the whole World Assembly. Shall we dump the Jews in Jerusalem? And everybody said, yeah, let's get rid of them. Now, the only problem with that was that in the meantime, the descendants of the promised land that were allowed to survive when they were not supposed to, they had taken up residence there, which was all desert. Nobody wanted the place, so they took it up. And they were desert tribes, and they knew how to live there. And it was a place for them to be when nobody else wanted them, because they were wicked evil. And they were called Palestinians. And they were living there now, and so the Jews move in, and there's a bit of a skirmish, and there's a long story there. But eventually they took up residence very uneasily. Okay? But the thing about this is that Israel was declared officially a nation on that day, and it was the only nation in history to be founded in a single day by official decree. Now, why does this demarcate the last days? Because in Mark 13:30 and Luke 21:32, I will quote, "Verily I say to you, that is, this is a certainty. This generation," and parenthetically I say, "that sees Israel, the nation, born in a day. This generation that sees Israel, the nation, born as a nation in a day, shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled." Now, that doesn't mean that, no more people will die. It means that some of them will live long enough to see that happen.
Of course.
Okay?
Yes.
So what that means, all things in context, all times events, including the second advent, the second coming of Jesus, and the resurrection, all those things have to happen before they die of old age. In other words, people who were born at or shortly after Israel's rebirth in 1948, they don't have time to all die of old age. And neither do we.
Neither do we.
That's right. You and I don't have time to die of old age. Other things, yes, but yeah. You may be crippled, but you won't die of old age. This event is the prerequisite to the restoration of the temple, the resumption of daily sacrifices, and the subsequent sacrifice interruption by the Antichrist, who sits on the throne of God in the Holy of Holies, that is, sits on the Ark of the Covenant, declaring himself to be God, leaving 3.5 years left to the resurrection and second advent. So, everything needed to restore and consecrate the temple has been assembled and accounted for, including the acquisition of 5 perfect red heifers just last week, requiring only a couple weeks to begin operations from the day that permission is granted. Okay? You see where I'm going with this?
I think so.
Okay. There's as much that you need to pay attention to that the Bible does not say, but you read between the lines, and certain things have to happen. And so, even though it has not said it, when you see that something has happened, that means it had to be possible. In order for that to be possible, certain things had to happen, even though the Bible didn't mention it up to that point.
Correct.
At this point, I need to point out that people are greatly mistaken when they think it would take months or years to restore the temple, because they're thinking the temple is the vast stone city architecture that surrounded the sacrificial quad. The fact is,
right. It's not.
The
temple's not a physical structure at all.
Well, it is. It's there is a temple, and it will be the third temple. But the fact is that all the parts needed for the sacrifices had to be hauled around the desert wilderness for 40 years. And they had to be set up at the end of every day. These parts are needed to resume all the ceremonies and sacrifices. Okay? That big support city is just to support the millions of people that used to live there, as well as the services. But to actually carry out the sacrifices and other ceremonies and rituals, this is all that's required. First, the tabernacle, which is a tent structure housing the Ark of the Covenant or the altar in a veiled anteroom called the Holy of Holies.
Correct.
The Ark itself, also known as the Mercy Seat, which was deliberately hidden and lost, has recently been located, though still guarded and inaccessible. It's not necessary to the sacrifices since then. In the second temple, they didn't use it. They used an altar instead. But it is God's token earthly throne, and it must necessarily be available for the Antichrist to commandeer and sit on it, declaring himself to be God and even believing it himself.
So when you refer to the recent finding of the Ark of the Covenant,
Yes.
are you talking about the church in Africa?
No, that is the least. That is the least believable. That's a long ways away.
Okay.
There,
I had read and looked up information on this church in South Africa.
yes.
That is said to nobody enters it but one man, one priest, and and they claim that the ark is there.
Yeah, and they guard it closely with deadly force.
Why would they?
Okay.
If it's not there, why would they? If it's not there,
right. Well, because great tourist attraction.
Okay.
Gives them a lot of power. Neighboring tribes are not likely to wipe out the only people guarding this.
Saying, yeah, right.
God's throne is what it is on earth. God's throne on earth, not the one in heaven. There's two other locations that have been claimed to be that, including one of them. One of them was listed in. Well, one of them was in Egypt. And that's what was depicted in the Raiders of the Lost Ark movie with Harrison Ford. That whole movie.
One of them Brazil.
No, I don't know. The other one was in some European church. I don't remember right off the top of my head. But that movie came out not long after it was discovered and was obviously put up as a disinformation project.
Okay.
But I will give you a reference. You can type this down now. Write this down now as a search term. Look for. I'm going to try to bring it to mind off the top of my head. The guy who actually found it. Oh boy. There's too much chaos in my notes to find that. But I will come up with it. It's not hard to find. So the Ark of the Covenant and the Tabernacle. These two are stored together with a few other temple furniture. But these are the only two, really, actually, only the Ark cannot be replicated. Everything else can and already has been replicated.
The Ark can't be, though.
That's right.
Neither can the Word of God can't be either.
Yeah,
but that's what the Ark Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant is, described as the Word of God.
Well, one of the reasons why it has to come to the end, besides the misuse of the Antichrist, is the fact that it also contains the second tablets written by God's finger of the first of the 10 Commandments. Okay. And that will shatter a lot of the claims. For example, the Roman Catholic Church fused two of the 10 Commandments into one, so that they could to make room for another commandment they wanted to add. For example, okay. And there's many others who say, well, you don't even know if you can interpret that right, or you don't know that it was copied right, and etc. There's all kinds of objections, but most all of those objections have been reasonably set aside. This will absolutely nail it. It also proves beyond a question of a doubt that that is something that could only have been in the Ark, because that's where it was kept. There was one other thing was kept in there. What was it?
Wasn't it?
Well, the Torah.
Was it the Torah? Well, okay, the Torah,
which is basically it's basically one scroll that contains the first 5 books of the Bible.
Okay.
Now the next,
Is the book of Enoch in that?
No. The Book of Enoch is real hard to pin down. We don't have the original Book of Enoch. There were 3 of them, supposedly. That's a really long subject too. There's good reason to think that at least the second and third one are probably false, and we don't have the exact copy of the Book of Enoch like we have of the Old Testament, because the Old Testament was copied under special sudden death rules, where it took a lot of people not just copying but verifying and re-verifying and re-verifying, and then all the different copies then have to be compared, and if there's anything different, then there's all kinds of a brouhaha trying to figure out exactly, because it's not just a matter of copying the words. The words are made up of consonants only, and then between the consonants are these little check marks called vowel points. And the vowel points tells you what the vowels are, even though they're not technically letters. Those have to be exactly right too. So the Torah is a super precise document, and you can absolutely rely on it for being accurate as written. But then you have the problem with trying to understand the language and the mindset and the concepts, of something that's basically brought to us by a super intelligence, and it even has codes embedded in it for our time. And you can look up the phrase Bible code, and you can actually download an app to your computer that will actually search the Torah for search terms, and it will find embedded codes describing the last couple thousand years, describing the names of kings and presidents and their assassins and the dates they were born, the dates they died, all kinds of things. Okay, and that's all another topic. So
let's get back on topic.
Yeah, only the Ark can't be replicated. All the rest have been. Now the next thing they need is a perfect red heifer. And I mean perfect. I mean, there cannot be one black hair or any other color hair anywhere on it. There can't be an injury. There can't be a ruffled hair. They need a perfect red heifer. And
didn't you say there was just 3 of them born?
Well, 5 of them were just born in Texas this year. They only need 1. They need 1 in order to go through the entire cleansing of the temple to sanctify it, but they've got 5.
But is it specific, or is there any teaching of where this heifer is supposed to be residing or coming from?
No, it's just it's in Leviticus, the book of the Levites, which are the priests, also known as the Kohanim, the priests who serve in the temple. It's one of the Levites are one of the tribes of Israel, and they live so totally different from anyone else. They live under perfect communism. They are not allowed to own any property. Everything that they need must be given to them, and that's actually what the tithing was for. So these 5 heifers, well, the perfection is so rare that typically only 1 or 2 are ever seen anywhere in the world at any one time. 5 of them were calved on a Texas ranch. The Christian rancher immediately understood what they were and what they were for, and he called the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. They immediately flew out a contingent of rabbis and Kohanim. The temple priests specially trained many of them from early childhood for temple service and nothing else. And after their thorough inspection for perfection, they approved and took delivery of all 5, which arrived in Jerusalem last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
they are that ready. They need it to be soon because, of course, cows don't live terribly long, and they don't always stay. No. They don't always stay perfect.
No, and they taste great.
Yeah. Well, they certainly make good smoke rising up to heaven.
Right.
Well, the 4th thing they need there may be more. I didn't have time to suss this out further. But the fourth thing they absolutely must have is access to the Temple Mount in order to set up the temple, which they can do in a day or so. This will require
but they got to have access to that mount, that Temple Mount.
That's right.
Which they don't right now.
This will require a radical agreement to get Islam to give it up. And of course, what would make Islam give it up? Well, the Antichrist accomplishes this. This is one of the ways we know who he is, because he accomplishes this agreement, this covenant. It's a 7-year covenant. It's a treaty that guarantees Israel full unopposed access for 7 years for the prophetic arrival of the Messiah, after which they must give up all claims forever, whether he arrives or not, which is the reason why Islam will agree to it. Because their version of prophecy is just slightly different, and it really works for them. But then the Antichrist breaks that covenant exactly 3.5 years later, halfway through the covenant time, what we call the time of tribulation. He abolishes the sacrifices, and he sits on the ark throne and declares that he is God. Within that hour, he orders all who refuse to worship him and take his mark to be killed. Now, we haven't gotten to the mark yet, right? Might be a while before we get to that. But everyone who does take it is sealed with him and his eventual fate in the lake of fire. There is no
no second chances on that.
No, there is no salvation from that.
There's no turning back.
That's right.
That's
right. Now, let me give you the website of the Temple Institute. It is all one word, templemountfaithful.org.
So, Temple
Mount.
All one word?
Yeah, Temple Mount.
Mount.
Faithful.
Temple Mount Faithful.org. Cornerstone?
No, .org.
Oh.
.org.
.org.
In other words, this is a non-profit organization. It's the .org domain is a domain set aside just for non-profit organizations.
Okay, so templemountfaithful.org.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
All right.
Let me
call it up.
Show this for the audience.
Mm-hmm. I've been following this group since the early '80s, when the internet first started coming out, especially when the World Wide Web started, and the use of browsers that could show pictures. We didn't really have any video bandwidth, but we had pictures. And these people, this site is where they have been continually reporting the news of their progress, of how they have manufactured and sanctified all the parts that go into the temple, into the tabernacle, and into the Holy of Holies, and how they have been training the Kohanim. They chose certain children or very young men, and and those people, they were taken from their families, and they were raised in a special school where they did nothing but practice the temple services. So I've been following them.
Okay.
I've been following them.
Right.
I guess I've been following them for almost 40 years.
This is the right site, right?
Let me take a quick look. That's it. Yes. That's how it looked today. That's how it looked when I looked at it today. Yep.
All right. Well, then I will save this and
on that page you will see the news about the 5 red heifers.
All right. I just bookmarked it so I can review it later. All right. And we can pull this up now whenever we need to.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific in it that you wanted to go over?
No, I just wanted to mention the Red Heifers.
Okay.
As I said, this is pointing you to, and everyone, to where they can go if they're, even if they're atheists and are just curious about how crazy all this stuff goes, because the coincidences are just unbelievable,
So, okay, so everybody, for the viewers and people that will be viewing this, that website is again templemountfaithful.org.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. All right.
Okay.
We're back.
I will have to switch documents here because I thought I had imported this into this central document. Oops. Oh, wait a minute. So I want to fill out the rest of the prophecies of the end times that shows you where we are.
Okay.
And okay, I did get that. Let's see. I guess I did get that in. Oh, let's see. Somewhere here I had a list of about a dozen old prophecies before Revelation that pointed directly to where we are. It includes, for example, the opening of the temple the return of Hebrews back to their homeland.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in a more general sense, in Acts 2:17, it says, and it was Jesus saying, no, I'm sorry. I think this is Paul reporting God saying, and it shall come to pass in the last days, I will pour out in those days of my spirit upon all flesh. Now, when he says all flesh, by the way, that includes Islam.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, since the lockdown has started, tens of thousands of people of Islam have been flooding into Christian and Jewish, mainly Christian churches, and saying, "I had a dream, and I was standing face to face with your Savior, and he showed me things, and I absolutely have to come and learn from you." So, the conversions, many of these conversions are happening directly through the Holy Spirit. And then it goes on, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. All the way down to the lowest echelon of the social order. No one is left out. In fact, actually, a general pattern is that the less of an expert in scripture you are, the less likely you are to be chosen as a prophet. He picks people who have no idea what they're talking about when he passes a message, so they don't have any ideas of their own to put on them.
Well, that's why Jesus, a great quote from Jesus was, I didn't come here to save the saved.
Yeah, yes. Well, no.
I came here for the thieves and the sinners, and
yeah. Plus, the people he says are saved are actually the people who think they are saved and are closed-minded.
Yeah.
That's largely what he's talking about there. The high and the haughty. Who are you to tell me, what is what?
Well, I'm sure the criminal on the cross next to Jesus when they were crucifying.
Yes.
has a high place
Yes.
right now because he asked for forgiveness and he took Christ in his heart right there.
Yeah, well, more specifically, the reason he took it right there is because he was so utterly sick of this life that he had been leading, though he had no idea how to live it any differently, or there was even any such thing as anything different. And he was ready to die. He just wanted to die and get it over with. And here, somebody actually held out a hand of actual, real hope.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he was receptive.
And
well, he's got eternity to find out what's what and learn how to live free of.
Right.
Okay. The thing is, we are not judged by our works, but by our intentions of those works, which is very lucky for us on one side of the coin. On the other side of the coin, the more we know, the more we should know what works we should be doing, and the more we are held accountable for our works.
Well, I searched this into myself and in my heart and in my life over and over again many times, and I don't know. Hey, who knows what your calling is? For me, I'm going in this direction because not that I think it's my calling, but my duty.
Your duty, at least.
Yes.
The calling has to come from him, but you can always do the duty that you know.
No, a calling has to come from him.
Yes,
that's true. And for anything from him to be successful, you got to have a blessing.
Yes.
I don't know. I've asked myself, is this live stream the calling? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Because
if you realize, if you look, we got a whole lot of nothing but viewers, no viewers.
Yeah. Well,
so is this my calling? Is this my calling? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? I've asked myself that.
When it is a calling, you would know, because you would wake up one day and you would have such a compulsion, a feeling of urgency that you don't even want to stop for breakfast. You want to start now. And
that's what this is.
And it lays heavily on your mind all the time, all day, all night, until you get the word out that you know you have to get out. And then you get the next word and the next word, and it all comes to you. All kinds of coincidences happen, all kind of synchronicity, and that's how you know it's a calling. And of course, it doesn't.
Okay.
Of course, it doesn't hurt at all if a loud voice suddenly says, "Brian."
Yeah, right. that would be fantastic.
It's fantastic, but it's scary. I
wouldn't be scared.
Because you have to understand, once he has given you specific instructions, especially when he's given you specific words, you must quote those words with absolute accuracy.
To be a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ and the Father in heaven, you have to believe in this, in Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard the voice of Lucifer. I've seen the evil of Lucifer.
Yeah.
I've heard the voice of Lucifer. I'm not saying I'm hearing voices or anything. I'm crazy, but I've heard evil.
Yeah.
I've heard evil. I've seen the evil, and you got to know that that's Lucifer.
Well, unless you know absolutely nothing. At the age of 3, I knew absolutely nothing, so I had no idea why a hand grabbed me and slammed me against the wall so hard it felt like it was going to break my wrist. It was sore for days. That was my first introduction to God, was through the devil, because God is very, very subtle, very unimposing, and even when you kind of start asking him, he's slow to answer. But the devil's right there as soon as you start asking. You pick up a Ouija board, you start, you just start praying with nobody's name in mind, and he'll answer. And if you're an atheist and you really want to know, or no, I'm sorry, not an atheist. If you're an atheist, you're determined. But if you're an agnostic, you really need to know if there is a God. There is one way that you can find out once and for all. Number one, if you're a scientist, you can find out if there really is a supernatural. And number two, once you know there's a supernatural, you can find out real quick if there actually is a God. Because, very dangerous, but you can find out, is just go join a New Age cult, go join some witch coven or something, and see what happens. And before you know it, something will be following you around, harassing you, and you'll have a terrible time getting rid of it. But you'll know there is a devil, and if there's a devil, there must be a
demonic
God.
spirits. Well, you see, demonic spirits are real.
Yeah.
They describe them. They're described in Matthew. They're described in the Bible.
Yes.
But
to a person, to a person who has never experienced high strangeness, they have had a mundane life all the time and have never seen anything miraculous, either a dark miracle or a miracle of light. None of this is believable. And this is what I'm trying to say. People are going to have to overcome this. Now, on the other hand, as we go into the last days, you won't have to push so hard because it will come to you, it will come to the world. Demons are going to start manifesting in the physical more and more.
Sure.
And in fact, all eyes have been on CERN in Geneva because they are opening a doorway.
They're fooling around. They think, we discovered the guard particle.
Yes, but more to the...
We discovered how we're going to discover anti-gravity.
But that's all they're talking about. What they themselves do not see, because they're deep underground, is that in the sky above them, there are weird light shows going on, vortexes and holes and portals opening and closing. And
what's coming through them?
Fireballs. And they're all over YouTube. You can go look them up.
Oh, no, I've been studying the UAP, the UFO phenomena that's been going on here for quite a while now.
Sure, but this is specifically over CERN.
But this is over CERN.
Yeah. The only other place where UFOs are that active is over the mountain whose name I cannot pronounce down in Mexico. Prophecyclub something.
No, I think they have a capability that is dangerous.
Where's that charger that I brought in here?
That can that can cause damage to this planet.
Yes. Well, I will get into the damage to this planet.
But
where?
But at the same time, it's another fallacy. It's another. It's like It's like those that believe in climate change.
Yes.
That believe that we got the capability to destroy what God created. We're fools to believe we got the capability to even touch something God creates.
Well, towards the end of Revelation, when he's returning and he's making war, he makes wars on those who do destroy the earth. And they are getting that technology from these demons. And the demons, one of the demons of the mission is to destroy everything that God has made, because they're in rebellion. And also because the earth is the infrastructure that was designed and built to support human life.
Well, I don't know if you follow the phenomena, the extraterrestrial UFO phenomena.
Not closely.
But that's increased. It's increased. It's increased and increased and increased.
Yep.
And now that the government's coming out and saying that they got full knowledge of these things, and
yes,
they're fully aware that it's a real phenomenon.
Well, they aren't just fully aware of it. They've been cutting deals
ever since 1947.
Yeah, that's about right.
And I have no proof. I have no evidence other than what the Bible's taught me.
Yeah.
These things are evil. These things are of Satan, and it's going to come down to they're going to make first contact a contact is going to be made. And this person, this Antichrist that you say is human,
Yeah.
are you sure?
Yes, he's a human body. He takes a wound to the head, and then he is possessed because the breaking of the. It was the breaking of the. I have to go back and look at that. That's one of the things I meant to cover today. But the breaking of the first seal, he's released from his prison, and he goes and possesses this man, and that fusion is the Antichrist. So to the question, is the Antichrist here today? Yes and no.
But has the Antichrist always been here?
No. He's the spirit that becomes him has been locked up for since the flood.
But always has been.
Yeah,
but has been since.
Yeah, or actually since King Nimrod, because this is the same spirit that inspired King Nimrod and actually was inhabiting him.
So regardless of the body.
Yes.
Okay, regardless of the body.
Yes.
You take the body away, the Antichrist has been for a very long time.
Yes, in this bottomless pit, which he's about to be released from.
Right.
Okay, but he does have to have a body that is one of the top world leaders' bodies in order to step right into the shoes of power.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. He's got to have a body.
Yep.
But is it necessarily going to have to be human?
Yeah. Well, I get your point. Actually, no. There are indications that this body. Remember that the elites themselves are taking.
It's miraculous.
They're taking forms. They're taking forms of the mRNA injection that are very different from ours, which actually do extend their lives and give them special powers and things. And so and also. This particular family line is where we have the royalty. Something I know more than a little about because both sides of my family were blue bloods. And so, yeah, technically, if you take the COVID injection, you have become something less than human. I don't think this is really the mark of the beast, but it is definitely part of it. Some people who take the shot don't have anything happen. Usually the elites, nothing happens. And that's because they got a saline solution with nothing in it. Some people most people start growing these worm-like things inside their veins. The body starts creating structures inside the veins, which eventually shuts off the veins. So it takes anywhere from months to years to die of loss of circulation. That is going on now, and we've just seen the tip of the iceberg of the people dying by the thousands now, but almost half the planet, almost 3 billion people have taken it. And then those that have taken the second shot and then the boosters, well, they won't last nearly as long. Now, there's a third class of shots where, and again, you can find this on YouTube. There are people who took the shot, and the first thing they notice is that magnets stick to their arm where the injection site is. Then the next thing they discover is they've become a Bluetooth transmitter. Everybody's computer and phone sees them as a Bluetooth device. Now, one of the world's top health scientists, Mike Adams, called the Health Ranger, that's his name of his show. He has every kind of equipment that you need to look at things all the way down to the level of atoms. And he is saying that one of the things the nanotech structure does in that third class of shots is it absorbs 5G radiation, the Wi-Fi radiation and the phone service radiation. And it doubles that frequency and re-radiates it through the body. Now, there's nothing in the body that needs that energy. However, Another class of molecules or molecular nanobots need that high frequency because they're so tiny to power them. So in essence, this third shot is obviously the first prototype of the mark of the beast, which is basically going to change your genetics so that you are no longer human at all. And in fact, the things that they are talking about now is how these ultra nanobots will infiltrate your brain. They'll hook into your brain, and then everybody's going to love it because they're going to be able to dial their phone by just thinking about it. They'll be able to think, or they'll be able to talk to people just by thinking the words. Some people who have paralysis or other disabilities due to brain damage will suddenly be able to function again. But then they are not. They're not necessarily thinking their own thoughts, and every thoughts they have are being recorded, just like our cell phone conversations. All our e-texts and so forth are being recorded.
Sure.
Okay. And there's a couple other variations. I think there's 2 other variations, but it's all a mass experiment. So I gave you one reference. Let me give you another reference. This is an organization which collects and vets and then reports the composite view of dreams and visions that are sent to them from all over the world. And it's called Prophecyclub.com.
Okay.
They have been off of YouTube for over a month now. They've been shut off. I'm hoping they will come back. Now, this is run by a minister, and he's not a prophet, but he only occasionally has dreams or visions. Only once has he ever actually heard an audible voice. Most of the time, his talent is discernment. He can read something like someone's dream, and like Joseph, he will either get a nod that yes, this is a real prophecy and it's valid, or he'll get a big yawn and say, no, forget this one. His wife is an actual anointed prophet, had the oil put on her head and so forth. She runs another church. She runs a school for prophets.
Okay.
My next link is, I'll also mention Kim Clement, Perry Stone, and his wife, who is also a prophetess, and Dana Coverstone. I mentioned him last week. He's the fireman who had a nervous breakdown, but then he became, he wasn't anointed. He just started having massive dreams, and this is the one person who has been able to point to the calendar and say, and this happens there, this happens this week, this happens on that day, and so forth. And every one of those has come true. I had mentioned earlier Michael Rood. He spent his life researching and restoring the Hebrew calendar. Now, only this calendar nails every date in prophecy. He and a friend, Nehemiah Gordon, give the best explanations for everything in the Bible. They have huge collections of teachings and seminars that they have given over the last 30 or 40 years on everything in the Bible. And they explain the Hebrew words. They explain how the Hebrew words became Greek words, how the Greek words became English words, how those words were mistranslated or were translated correctly but were misunderstood because, especially with Gordon, he explains that the Hebrew mind sees things in a very different perspective. And so the Hebrew perspective interprets everything in life very differently, because when the Hebrews were essentially founded as a nation by Yehovah himself, by Jehovah himself, by God of the Heavenly Father, he impressed on them over several lifetimes a way of thinking, his way of thinking and his way of talking. and he gave them the language that they used. So they did have Hebrew, which was the Paleo-Hebrew, actually was the original language spoken by all men on earth before the Tower of Babel confusion. And that's also the language of heaven. All the angels and demons speak it. So that not everyone was in that land at that time. So not everyone had their language corrupted, and those people continued on. Nehemiah Gordon, he was born in America, funnily enough, to a Jewish family, but he kept running into all these contradictions. As a Jew, he was made to go specifically to Torah school to read and learn and understand the Torah and what it meant. But he kept running into contradictions. And Nehemiah it was born with a very high level of coherency, mental coherency, and integrity. And he just couldn't handle it, couldn't stand it. So then he went and started looking at other things, kept asking, why are we teaching and living something very different? Especially since it says, you are never to change anything in this law. This is forever. And they said, well, it's because we also have an oral Torah that the rabbis through the last 2.5 centuries wrote. And they interpret it. Just like the Pope claims he interprets the Bible and you can't read the Bible because only he can interpret it. The rabbis claim that only they can interpret the law. Not only that, like the Pope, they claim they can change the law because they give policy to God. That's okay. That's what Jesus was up against. They had only been doing this for 400 years when he came in and started slashing everything with a sharp sword. So, Gordon is often a guest on Michael Rood's channel, which is called A Rood Awakening. Michael Rood has... A
Rood Awakening.
Yeah, Michael has one of the driest senses of humor you'll ever run into. He will be yelling and screaming and railing with great fervor and anger at you, and then say some of the most stupid things. And then just keep going on as if nothing happened. But then you realize he was making a joke. He's got tremendous self-control. He will lead you into a line of thought, and then he uses very choice, spicy words to describe just how stupid these leaders are, and how numbskull people are for following them. But he does it because he's very, very, very passionate, and because humor goes a long ways to building bridges.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So Michael is the one that wrote the Chronological Gospels, which is the New Testament Bible rewritten in chronological order. Okay. So he includes his direct English interpretation and all 4 of the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And each step of the way, he shows chronologically the whole events of Jesus' ministry. And he shows how and why specific things had to happen in a specific way. And he also debunks once and for all the several hundred-year-old teaching that his ministry was 3.5 years. When it was only about 1 year and 3 months total, beginning to end. And he tells you, he gives names the names of who wrote that and how they decided it, and he brings you back to grounds you. He brings you back to the ground, to the truth.
Okay.
And then his guest and friend Nehemiah Gordon has his own website called Nehemiah's Wall.
What was that?
Nehemiah's Wall. No, let me spell it for you. When you are reading the names of the books of the Bible, you call it Nehemiah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's one of the cases where only Jews know how to say that word, because that's still a common name that they use. Okay. So it's Nehemiah, is Nehemiah Gordon, Gordon. Okay.
Nehemiah
Nehemiah Gordon. Yeah.
Gordon.
Now the reason he's important and why he's an authority is because he's a little on the autistic spectrum, and he's talked about it himself. And the thing about autistics, and by the way, I am too, especially early in life, I more or less somewhat outgrew it. But the thing about autistics, or being on the spectrum of the functional variety, is that you tend to be obsessed with one thing. Yeah. So for me, it was trains until I was 5 years old. I was going to be a train engineer, but then I found out the trains were going away. I still played with them, as a train set. And then when I was 7 years old, there was a political ad about a robot talking, and I stopped, and I was on my way out the door to school, and I looked at that and I said, "Mom, what is that?" It reminded me of the Tin Man of Oz, but it was square. Yeah. It was square instead of pointy.
Yeah.
Well, she says that's a robot. Well, what's a robot? It's a mechanical servant that does whatever you tell it to. And that switched me from trains to the future of robots. And that was my life's goal until I was 22 years old, when the government put all the entrepreneurs in America out of business.
Yeah.
So that's a little side trick there. But Nehemiah Gordon has worked his way up to the most respected, if not the most revered, expert in ancient documents and their translation. He is, in fact, the head of ancient documents at the University of Jerusalem. He is the world's top expert in understanding the original meanings and intent in ancient texts, and a corrector of translation errors and corruptions. So Nehemiah's Wall is where he talks. Now, up until about a year and a half ago, he did not actually believe Jesus was the Messiah. And he became more and more agnostic about that. But he was so floored by the sheer genius of everything Jesus said in the original Hebrew, and even in the translation in Greek, that he was stuck on him, because now he was learning from the master. Up to that point, he was the one teaching the world. He started learning from Jesus in his original languages, 3 languages. And then he created Nehemiah's Wall, so he could then turn and educate the rest of the world in all that he has learned from that. And in the last 12 to 15 months, I think that he has finally made the turn and decided, okay, that probably was the Messiah, and there was actually 2 visitations, not just 1. There's the Messiah that came to save all of humanity, and also specifically to break the curse over Israel, because they had at Mount Sinai, while they were waiting for God's laws, after they just taken a blood covenant that they would obey him no matter what. They couldn't even wait the 40 days or whatever it was for Moses to come back down before they went back to the worship of Baal. That people, and
idols. Yeah.
Well, not just idols, but the sacred cow that they were worshiping. That's called. What's it called? Mithras. That's called Mithras, the bull.
Okay.
It is connected with the sun god, and it is Baal, and that is the child sacrifice religion, and that's why there was no going back with them. That's why he had to have them killed. They could not even repent from that.
Yeah.
Because when they set up the bull, they were setting up the thing to be worshipped, but then the next thing would be to set up the brass furnace bull that children are fed into alive. Okay. And that still goes on to this day in the Khazarian Mafia, which is headquartered in Ukraine. Started in it was a tribe out of Kazakhstan, and then they moved two countries over and made their headquarters in Ukraine. That is why the Ukraine is the most corrupt place in the world, because that is in fact the devil's center of control and decision making for the one world order.
That's why Putin wants it.
Putin suffered under the communist rule, which was their rule, and when they finally managed to overthrow them, they were not about to allow those people to get away with it. And so there are not only are the Khazarians there, but also almost a third of the country are descendants of German Nazis, and they are still Nazis. They still Heil Hitler. They still wear the uniforms. And both of those groups have been killing Russians all this time. And once he gained power, his number one goal in life is to wipe them out. And the thing is that they hold, because that's where super wealth comes from, which is blackmail. They have enough gold there, according to one of the prophets. They have enough gold to wage 3 World War IIIs. And
that's insane.
And,
that is insane.
And that if they can get their hands on the main weapon tool of the Khazarians, which is all the blackmail on all people in the world, then they can just hold it up and to the world's leaders, and the world's leaders will resign and go into hiding because they know what's in that. Movies and documents and things of them doing mainly atrocities to children as part of the price of rising to the top of the world leadership.
It's insane.
Yeah, but no, insane doesn't know what it's doing. This is called evil. A Rood Awakening TV also puts out Shabbat Night Live, which is in the same style as Saturday Night Live. But it is for the Sabbath. Shabbat is Sabbath, and it's at sundown Friday to sundown Saturday is the true Sabbath. And so they have a show for that. It actually starts a little before sundown. Yeah, that's on YouTube,
wow.
and they also have their own website. Those were the main links that I wanted to give. Okay. Now the next thing is I was going to start giving you the prophecy code. How to interpret the prophecy to know what happens next and what we need to do about it. Now, first of all, I obviously don't have time to list 88 code symbols or even show them on the screen, or to show the variations, because not everything is, there's more. Let me say, verbally, I'll give you the link. Go to avirtuouswoman.org.
avirtuouswoman.org
/88
/88
dash symbols
dash okay
of dash of dash prophecy.
Dash prophecy.
Yeah, and on this website there's a huge table. It lists the code word or phrase. And then it lists the plain text meaning. Not all of the meanings, by the way. I saw a few of them were missing, or actually not even entirely accurate. Reasonably accurate in one sense, but lacking something in the other sense. and then the last column is the scriptural books, chapters, and verses where they're used. Some of the verses, not all of them. So that's your reference point. You need to try to print that out, post it up on your desk somewhere as you read through prophecies. It's important to understand these are not just someone's guesses or personal interpretations. All of these codes are actually revealed within the scriptures themselves. The scriptures themselves tell you how to interpret them, if you know where to look, of course. But it's unreasonable to expect you to do the centuries of work that went into decoding these, often with the help from the Holy Spirit.
And,
So I give you this chart, and I'll also just use the insight I've inherited from all that seminal work to interpret the prophecies as I'm going along. And so we will probably have to read through Revelation next week. But this is the infrastructure, groundwork, context that you need to even understand all that. I don't expect you to take my word for it. I'm just giving you a starting point for verifying these perspectives for yourselves.
Sure.
Now, having said that, as you'll see when I show you exactly where we are in the prophetic timeline, I've got a lot of pointers. You probably don't have time to verify more than a handful of them before the brimstone hits the fan. And you'll just have to go with what you know. You definitely want a portable Bible.
Got one?
Yeah, a pocket Bible. And 5 diopter reading glasses to read the fine print. Or there are electronic devices that have the Bible in them, and they will scale the letters to whatever size you can see them. Those work well, but you need to be sure that you also are carrying lots of spare batteries. These things last a really, really long time. They're using technology that requires essentially zero power. But nevertheless, batteries age, and you can carry this instead of your pocket Bible. Don't get it wet. Maybe put it in a Ziploc bag. But you need something to be always able to carry with you, because otherwise your only other choice is to memorize the entire Bible, and you don't have time for that.
Here's my electronic right here.
Excellent. And of course, you can use the app on a cell phone. Just make sure that the text actually is contained on your smartphone and not on the web or the net, on the cloud.
Yeah.
Because when that goes away, it won't do you any good. 90% of everything your smartphone does is actually done on the cloud, and it just shows a good face.
Right.
Okay, so secondly, as I mentioned earlier, Revelation is not the whole story, but rather a synopsis of all the prophecies of the end times, and plus much added details about how all these separate prophecies play out over the 7+ years. And when I say plus years, I mean including after the tribulation, when we go into the millennium. Technically, we are in the 7th millennium now. We just finished the 6th millennium in the year 2000. And we are now well into the 7th millennium, which means that man is no longer in charge of his own affairs. From now on, God is in charge of everything that happens. And so it also mentions the next 1,000 years, and finally there's a little bit about the rest of eternal time.
All right.
Yeah. Understanding Revelation requires knowing the other prophecies and the current world events as context. So you need to keep track of the news too. Not only do we need to see what is said, but even what goes unsaid. As I said earlier, well, it doesn't say that the Jews rebuild the temple or recover the Ark of the Covenant, but it does say the Antichrist sits on the Ark inside that tent. So therefore, they have to at least have put that back together. That is the restoration of the third temple.
Okay.
The temple sacrifices became impossible for almost 2,000 years after the temple was destroyed, and the people were scattered in AD, 70 AD. And yet we see the Antichrist halting the sacrifice, taking over the temple. And from this, we should have realized that before that can happen, the people of Israel would have to be returned to Israel, which actually happened May 14th, 1948, as I said. Other extremely unlikely required events have also happened, and now they all need to resume the sacrifices. All they need to resume the sacrifices is for the treaty they signed to access the Temple Mount, which I also touched on earlier.
Yeah.
We learn to read between the lines of prophecy. In other words, all the things that doesn't come right out and say, but things that have to be. And then we also learn to have faith in the just taking them at their word by looking at how past prophecies actually played out. After you've looked at how, almost all the prophecies have come to pass. So there's plenty of examples to look at and see, well, when this prophecy said this, this is what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when Jesus predicted that not a single temple stone would be left on atop another, well, that actually happened in 70 AD. Now, he didn't say how or why it would be ripped apart so thoroughly, but now, looking back at that event, we can see how and why. Titus Caesar ordered both the temple and the city utterly destroyed. Since they were built of stone with wooden and fabric framework, the Roman soldiers accomplished this with the hottest fires that they could produce. Every kind of accelerant, every kind of fuel of their own, aimed at whatever fuel they could find. And when the massive amounts of gold throughout the temple exceeded the melting point of 1948 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1064 degrees Celsius, it melted and ran into the crevices of these stone blocks. So later, afterwards, the Romans came back and pried every stone block apart to get at it. That's a historical fact.
Wow.
See? So when you start learning how prophecies come to pass from after they've been given, you start to think about, and you start to be able to reason how future things that seem to be impossible now could happen.
Okay.
So, I think.
Well, listen,
Mm-hmm.
we have gone almost 2 hours. We're 4 minutes from 2 hours.
Okay. Well, I've got another.
And
I got another 20 minutes.
okay. All right.
Of my notes.
Oh, okay.
So, although I'm going to give actual interpretations of some specific prophecies as examples along the way, my goal today is to teach you how to interpret the prophecy in general and how Revelation ties all the latter-day prophets together throughout the Bible together into one picture. And in doing so, I have to untangle several different stumbling blocks that make Revelation almost impossible to understand. The first one is that Revelation is formatted in sections that are in chronological order, but with lots and lots of parenthetical flashbacks. Many teach that Revelation is not in any particular order, not in chronological order, but that it describes all the events happening at once in several different ways. Well, if this was true, let me debunk that, because why are the seals, trumpets, and vials numbered? And why are they listed in numerical order? Now, we haven't covered Revelation yet. We will, but this is what you're going to see. There are 7 seals broken on a book, on a scroll. The scrolls were books of the time, and that includes contracts. Okay. And the seals are these are symbols that we see in the heavenly court. And as each seal is broken open by the only person who can break them, there are more and more demons and fallen angels who have been held back for thousands of years. Otherwise, we never would have had a chance. More and more of them are released. And they are released in order to basically make an awful lot of people have an awful lot of come to Jesus moments. That's the best way I can put it.
Right.
Okay. And it's also partly because these broken seals represent rights and powers that Satan has that he is losing. Each of those seals is one of his. Each time he loses a seal, the balance has to be maintained because he loses the power over the earth in a certain way, so he is given back power in another way. So there are 7 seals. There are 7 trumpets and 7 vials, and they're all numbered and they're listed in numerical order. If they all happen the same year, then why are there 7 years and 7 seals? And why is there 7 years from the breaking of the first seal to the 7th seal and the return of Jesus?
Because it's not all at one time.
Not only is it not all at one time, that means that the 7 seals play out over 7 years. And when I say play out,
or 7,000 years.
When I say play out, no, these are literal years, because in Revelation, the code word for it is days. There are 1,278 days of the first half and 1,278 days of the second half, 3.5 years each.
But the fact that a day is to 1,000 years to God, and 1,000 years is to a day.
Yeah.
That don't take into account.
That's taken into account in what I said earlier, which is that we are now in the 7,000th millennia. Okay. The 7,000 years from the fall of Adam to the far end after Jesus takes control of earth. That is the word week in Hebrew means 7. That's all it really means. But when you say
7.
week, it's in terms of time, it's understood to be 7 time periods. Okay. So I mean, I know you've heard. You're an old timer like me, and you've heard the old timers, our old timers phrase, 7 ways from Sunday. Or we've also heard a week of Sundays.
A week of Sundays.
Yeah, that's a week of weeks, and those words are literally used not only in prophecy but also in instructions about when the feasts are to be held. So a week of weeks is 7 weeks or 49 days. And then the next day, the 50th day, starts a new era. So we have just finished a super Shemitah, a 490-year period of sevens of sevens. And the Shemitah is not what not what Khan says it is, which is the whole world is supposed to be following a time scale, or that the whole world is supposed to let their crops lie fallow. It actually literally was part of the Mount Sinai contract that not only would man rest, man and all his servants and animals and everything would rest every 7th day, but that every 7th year all debts must be forgiven or paid back, and all slaves must be freed. Okay, and then that happens in the 50th year, which is called the Jubilee. Okay. So, yes, it's true that we are now on day 7 of the full history of the Bible, from distant past to somewhat distant future.
Okay.
But when we are talking about prophecies over the 1 or 2,000 years, then 1 day equals 1 year.
Okay.
So when it's referred to by Jacob describes these 7 periods of 7 years, and the last one is the time of Jacob's trouble, the 7th week of his prophecy, not of literal time, but of his period of prophecy. And there's a couple others very much like that. So yeah, the answer is obvious, reasonably obvious. The 7 scroll seals are stripped off the scroll over 7 years. But when I say that, I don't mean that when 1 year ends and the next seal is broken, is stripped off, I don't mean that the first seal stops. The activities that happen during that first year continue, and we add trouble from the next year. And then the 3rd year, we add another layer of trouble. Okay.
It's going to be a lot of layers of trouble.
Yeah. So the thing about this scroll is that this is the scroll held by the Father, by Jehovah, sitting on his throne. He is holding this big scroll in his hand. It's the title deed to the planet Earth. And it was first held by Adam and Eve. The 7 seals on it represent Satan's claims on earth and its inhabitants and his lordship after he conned the first humans into giving up control by denying responsibility for the tree incident. Because power and responsibility are absolutely inseparable. They are two sides of the same coin in the court of heaven. So when Adam tried to blame Eve for his fall, he gave up his
deed.
his share of the deed and his control over the earth.
Yes.
And then Eve turns and blames the devil, saying, well, he fooled me. And in doing so, she failed to take responsibility and she lost the deed. Well, guess what Satan said?
It's mine.
He said nothing.
He said nothing.
Yeah, he took that responsibility. Yehovah knew that he was there. Yehovah knew that they were speaking the truth when he said that this is the guy who's responsible for everything that happened. Okay, you're responsible. You get the title to earth. So, and then over the thousands of years after that, more seals were added as various people committed various atrocities and things. Okay,
and it also and the fact that Jesus Christ himself proclaimed Satan as the ruler of this earth.
That's correct. And in fact, Lucifer was trying to get Jesus to add the 8th and final seal by saying, all of this is mine to give to you.
You.
Okay.
Yes. He says, all this I give unto you if you just...
Yeah. And here's where you read between the lines, Brian. Jesus didn't agree with him that he had title to the earth, but he did not deny it either.
He didn't deny it.
In fact, he answered him by saying, I don't care about that. I will not take earth at this time. Because, and then he reads the scriptures, he reads the law, it's that he is following. Okay? So he validated it first by not denying it, and second by giving an answer that nodded to it.
That pretty much proclaimed that.
Yes. But when he went to the cross as an innocent man and paid the price for the whole earth, he acquired the title of representative of all the inhabitants of earth, not of earth, but of the inhabitants of earth.
By dying for our sins.
Yes, and that is a position which nowadays we would call, in England we'd call it solicitor, in the U.S. and we would call it the lawyer. The reason why no one gets to the Father but through him is because he's the only one authorized, an officer of the court, to represent us in that court, because we cannot represent ourselves.
No, and for any of us to even look upon God the Father, we would surely die.
In our current state, yes.
In our current state, yes.
If we were absolutely pure and sinless, presumably that would not happen. I mean, Adam and Eve were fellowshipping with him all the time.
Yeah.
Until they had to leave.
Yes.
So when Jesus acquired that position, that power, he also was the only one authorized or had the power to strip those seals off.
Correct.
Okay. So as he strips them off, he reclaims title to earth by opening the now unsealed scroll. And as each seal is removed, like I said earlier, God also releases some of the fallen angels held back for thousands of years to torment people in a last-ditch effort to convince them to repent. But of course, only the repentant will. If you're already repenting, you already will. And you and I, as longtime followers, know that we struggle with it only because our habits of living are so bad that we don't even know when we're that we need to repent until after we've done it, and then we're constantly going back and saying, "Oh, dang, I did it again,"
Yeah.
Or I did that for the first time ever, and I should have known better.
And you wonder, and you wonder to yourself, because we're just as intelligent as we think we are, as a sentient being.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't know anything.
Not directly, not like he does.
Not like he does.
But we are capable of learning because our brains were designed on an architecture to hold a mind that was of the same architecture as his, which is why we are made in his image. We are his children. Yes. So we are capable. We are capable of growing, which is which is what even Satan cannot. And Satan cannot do that because he was created complete in his knowledge.
Yes.
We were created at the level of animals and then grew towards godhood, and will continue growing for quite some time.
Yes.
But we are growing separately in our own ways, specifically because that's the only way to develop a separate personality. If you are just a copy or an image of God, then you're not truly a child of God. You have to have your own mind, your own will. And
that's what he gave us.
That's what he gave us. And then it's a tragic waste of human souls and potentials that so many of us do not choose to go that way. But that is the price of getting truly sentient beings who truly love Yehovah and Yeshua from the bottom of their heart, with no there's no threats.
It's unconditional.
That's what I mean. It's unconditional, but by specifically I mean, we don't have to do anything for that, but he shouldn't have to do anything for our love either.
No. Oh, he's already done it.
Yeah, well, starting with creation to begin with.
Starting with creation, starting with the Son.
Yeah.
The Son of God, starting with Jesus Christ, starting with, giving his only begotten Son, because he loves us so much.
Yeah.
That he gave his only begotten Son.
I would start counting all the way.
To die for us.
I would start counting from all the way back when he adjusted the instruments in the quantum field to render the physical time-space continuum through its laws of physics.
You just got real deep there, Mystic.
Whoops, pull your foot out of that muck.
Yeah, right. I'm lost.
But that's how I count it.
I'm like,
Yeah. See, at some point, the great programmer had to first had to create the hardware, and then he had to start writing the code that described the equations that described the physical behavior of the universe in order to create the entities that live in that universe. So, yeah. So that's the level at which I appreciate him.
Yeah. All right.
So in the 7th and last year, when the last seal is being stripped off, then the 7 trumpets are sounded over 7 months. And as they sound, the plagues go from destroying people to destroying everything else, including vegetation, water, life, animal life, the air, to name some that were specifically mentioned. And then finally, in the last 7 days of the 7th month of the 7th year, the 7 vials are poured out on the earth. Now, up to this point, we've been suffering Satan's tribulations. Okay? But in the last 7 days, and this is when I say the rapture actually happens. I am a post-trib rapture, and I can't cover that today. There's no time. But unfortunately, we don't get to skip Lucifer's tribulation. Why would we?
No.
We have suffered. No. We have suffered that kind of torment. In Roman times, in Greek times, and all. We never got away with anything.
His needs to be exposed.
Yeah, and I'll conclude with saying, if you really think that we get snatched away at the first seal, then explain who are the people who Satan is allowed to slaughter. Who are the people in the throne room underneath the great white throne? Who are they begging, or who are they asking? When will they be able to? Will God wrap this up and bring his children home? Who are those children? And he says, not until they have died, just like you have died. So who are those people?
Yeah.
Why are those people not raptured? But he does not make us suffer through his own tribulation that he pours on the earth in the 7 vials, because those are not survivable.
No, and nor will they be pleasurable. Nor will they be. Nor will they be. How would you say? Fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
There ain't gonna be no fun going on. There
Yeah,
ain't gonna be no good times. There ain't gonna be no kumbaya.
Yeah,
There ain't gonna be.
Yeah, the 7 vials announced the last 7 plagues, but actually there is an 8th and the greatest plague of all on the earth, and that is right after that is the arrival of Jesus.
The arrival of Jesus.
Yeah, he is the greatest plague upon them of all, because
for the non-believers.
Because he comes back no longer as a lamb. Right up to that point, he was the lamb, and then those who are raptured at that last point go to the marriage supper of the Lamb, where they are married to him. Okay, it's a 7-day, 24-hour 7 celebration, and we don't get tired or sleepy. When he comes back from that, he is given a new name, and that name is Conqueror. He comes back as a warrior conquering.
Exactly.
And the people...
Puppy and Butterflies. I just wanted to say hi to Puppy and Butterflies. She say whoever this is saying hi. Male, female, don't know. Is the special need is going to heaven. Haven. Is the special needs is going to heaven.
Special needs will no longer be special needs when they're raptured or resurrected.
No. You'll be pure. You'll be whole.
You'll be more than whole and healthy. I've been trying to understand the glorified body. That's kind of a code word, but it's only because there was no concept for it when that term was invented. So what I make of it is a glorified body is a body of light, and this has been confirmed by Latter-day Prophets. A body of light is a hologram. That hologram is incapable of being hurt or injured in any way. And that is why we have immortality. There are no aging mechanisms. There are no there's no way for anything to harm you. Having said that, that doesn't mean that it's a ghostly body that can't touch anything.
Yes.
Okay. Think of it as hard light, made up of force fields. Somehow it's a projection, and in that projection, not only are you perfect, but you have unlimited strength. You don't have to use your body. You can just command a mountain to move, and that mountain moves. You can think of being in a place, and you will instantly arrive there. Just like because it's the glorified body is just like an angel's body.
And I worked as a CNA, a certified nurse's assistant, for 8 years. And I worked with special needs individuals.
I've done some of that work too.
And I've got to tell you that Puppy and Butterflies, you don't have to, if you're a special needs person or you know of a special needs person, you know what? You're pure of heart.
Yes.
There is, we're all born of sin and into sin. But the purest of hearts that I've encountered are the special needs, the Down syndrome.
Because they are very simple.
It's not just that. They have pure hearts. They don't know of wanting to do an individual with severe Down syndrome.
Yeah. Or even mild.
Has no inkling or no knowledge or no even concept of wanting to do harm or evil to somebody.
That's because they don't have the mental power to have an ego and to feel offended when their ego is bruised.
Okay. But to answer your question, puppies and butterflies, I truly, it's my true belief that, yes, all special needs people are going to go to heaven. Just like the babes of the world. The babes of the world in that time, they're going to be caught up.
Because they have not sinned.
They're not sinned.
Yeah.
They have not sinned. They're pure of heart. And so, yeah. I truly believe that all special needs people will go to heaven.
Yeah, they are citizens of the new kingdom, but they are not new kingdom, of the heavenly kingdom, but they are not leaders because they have not had any of the experiences that would try them and teach them what to watch out for, and the danger of certain ways of thinking and feeling. They're just it's as if Adam and Eve had never sinned. They're the kind of people who would just been complicated and sophisticated in thought, but not in heart.
Yeah. So I hope that answered your question, puppy or butterflies. And thank you for being part of the show.
Yeah.
And you're always welcome. So
at this,
Misty, where are we at this point?
We have reached chapter 12.
We have reached chapter 12.
Yeah, and this is a point. This is a point where the overall schedule, the chronological events has been completed. So now it turns and moves in another direction, and it's still talking about this 7-year time period, but it's talking about details. This is what I mean by flashbacks. It goes back and it talks about some of the things mentioned by earlier prophets or other prophets, and it gives more details. It explains how certain things will happen. It describes the people that will do it. And it starts getting very specific about. It starts dividing up the 7-year time period first into two major parts: the first 3.5 years and the second half 3.5 years. So, with the breaking of the first seal, the beginning of the 7-year countdown, the spirit that's unleashed from the bottomless pit becomes the Antichrist. He then has 3.5 years to gather up all the reins of power and to make a name for himself. Then he sits on the throne on the Ark of the Covenant, and then the second 3.5 year period he spends wiping out everyone who even looks at him wrong or has ever said anything against his order.
I see. My friend Jungle Ghost, it's the Bible. Welcome.
So we will still have to cover, for example, what I just mentioned, the Ark of the Covenant and its and his use of it, misuse of it. We have to. He is called the Beast, and he has a whole system made up of different parts. So not only is there a number of the Beast, there is also a financial system of the Beast, which is now being put into place as we speak.
Which would be probably what? Digital?
Yes, it's
currency.
Yes,
Bitcoin.
Yes, it's called the Great Reset. It's not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a very simple instrument that can only transfer assets, funds. The new system is based on the other primary systems, which are blockchain based. The blockchain system is actually a highly intelligent computer code interpreter, and what it does is it interprets contracts written in this code, and the contracts are smart enough to know about different things that people perform in order to get someone else to perform what they must do, what money they may give or receive, and when milestones are reached, and so forth. But the most important thing for the Beast system is it also knows your social credit score. You know what that is?
the social credit score.
Correct.
I've heard of it. I haven't really delved into finding out what it's all about.
Critically important that you do within a couple of days.
All right.
So I would like to give you a link, but I can only give you a couple search terms. There was a TV show called Dark Mirror. It was a predictive TV show that told us all the things that were going to happen in the future, and these were the plans for the future. And one of them was the social credit score. When this movie came out, it was already being implemented in China.
Okay.
So your financial credit score determines what size of loans you can get, sometimes what kind of house you can buy or what neighborhood you can buy it in, what rules you have to live by when you are buying a house with borrowed money, or anything else that you would buy on credit.
Okay.
A social credit score takes that, and then it also takes the full recorded history of everything you have ever said or done, and evaluates it politically to determine how good or bad a citizen you are of your country. That then determines not only whether you can buy a house, but whether you can even take a bus, plane, train, cab, buy a car, buy gasoline, buy a gun or bullets.
So this social credit score is a real thing that so I'm going to be able to look up social credit score and find out what mine is?
It's all over the place. No, they don't. It's currently running in China. And in China, you know what your credit scored based on what you're allowed to do or not allowed to do. Even which people you're allowed to talk to. One of the worst things about it is that your social credit score can also include who you talk to. And if you talk...
this is a... Is this a communist thing?
It's beyond communism. It's what communists...
I mean, because why is it only in China?
Because that was the test bed where they have billions, literally billions of people to test it on. They are already very compliant, so they didn't have to wipe out half the population just to get them in order. Because they automatically do whatever they're told. Because they're incredibly ignorant, and their internet is so tightly controlled that they can't find out this kind of information until, they can't even find it out. They can't go outside their country because of what is called the Great Firewall of China.
Okay, we got a new person in.
Okay.
51 151 crypto .com is saying hello all. ESG is not good.
ESG?
What is ESG? And how they control their citizens. What is where is ESG?
I think
what is ESG?
I think he's talking about the same thing, but he knows it under a different name.
Okay. Puppies and butterflies. I haven't heard that one yet. Okay.
I'm not even seeing it on my
Jungle. Oh yeah. Oh, you're not seeing crypto? 151 crypto?
Nope. Actually, I only have a handful of texts.
Jungle Ghost, the Bible is saying banks may shut down this Friday, the 30th.
There's a strong rumor coming from one of the most respected economists in the world. That's the main reason it's carrying so much weight.
So, okay. So you're North Carolina air gunner. 151 crypto is North Carolina air gunner. Well, welcome.
Yeah, I don't have any of those messages on my board. So So when I have an alarm set on my phone that goes off every Friday, but it's actually meant to go off only on Fridays that are 3 and 4 day weekends, and it's called the Frank Dodd for the Frank Dodd Act, or the Dodd-Frank Act. which was passed by Congress, which declares that all money given to a bank is the property of the bank, and they have no obligation to give any of it back to anybody. So this was the response. This was their solution to the 2008 banking crisis, when they had to take.
We're experiencing technical difficulties here, Mystic.
I'm not seeing any of it except for I guess my message board is not updating.
Yeah, I think your signal source is dropping on me.
Huh? Looks perfect on my end.
Yeah, you're dropping you're dropping signal as we speak.
All right, let me make a slight change in configuration, see if I can improve the Wi-Fi signal at least.
Oh, it just no, that made it worse.
Really?
That made it worse, yes.
Huh. Okay, so I am getting pop-ups now about it. I don't know how to correct it.
Well, maybe try going back to where you originally had your computer set.
In front of my lap.
Jungle Ghost is saying Biden signed executive order. Biden signed executive order with the crypto.
With the 2 hours changeover, I'm hearing 14 days.
Oh. And 151 crypto is saying that damn thing it against you. Are you back? Are you there?
I haven't left.
Okay. Why don't you try to refresh your browser and come back? Oh, there you go.
Right. Oh.
Now, okay. There you go. Now I got you back.
Maybe somebody was standing in front of my router for a while.
Maybe.
In the house.
Maybe. Okay. Oh, because you're back stronger than ever now.
Hearing 72 hours warning, but 14 days they'll be down, and then when they come back, your paper currency will no longer be anything, and you'll be handed an amount hopefully equivalent to what you had in paper cash, but odds are that the Dodd-Frank Act will allow them to bail in instead of bailing out with taxpayer funds. They will bail themselves in by simply keeping 2/3 of your money.
We lost them again.
And they will hand back this cryptocurrency that
one, you are in a torch subject with YouTube also messing you up. Crypto saying you're on a touchy subject with YouTube. And they may be doing this to you.
Algo is for algorithm.
Could be.
Can you hear me?
I can. No, you're cutting in and out real bad. Mystic. Why don't you refresh your browser and try to come back? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're here Still live. Mystic had to jump out, and I'm going to put another link up so he can jump back in, and we can finish this going on. There's Mystic back now. Okay.
You got me?
I got you, and you're completely in the green as far as my end's concerned.
Oh, I see that there's a problem with my laptop. It's overloaded 2 different ways. My CPU is maxed out.
Oh, it's overloading.
Yeah, my CPU is maxed out, and my RAM is gone, and it's now shuffling around with the disk drive trying to find spare space. That's what's happening. It's me. It's my problem.
Well, okay. Well, why don't we do this, Mystic? Why don't we go ahead in today?
Okay.
And prepare for next weekend.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay, and then we'll start reading the actual text.
Yes, we will. Mystic 22, thank you so much for your wonderful knowledge, your educational background, your being here with us, and helping us to understand the Word of God and this book of Revelations, which is so mysterious and so confusing.
And critical at the same time.
And critical at the same time. And you are gracious enough to come in and help me and my viewers to understand. So again, thank you, Mystic.
It was my duty.
Well,
and
this is ours.
It's looking more and more like a column.
Yes.
Despite the distractions and interruptions, I was very driven this week and last.
Right. I know. I hear you. I hear you. And it's strange because we're going on 2.5 hours. That's my longest live stream.
That's your personal record.
And we had nobody up until the last half hour of the live stream.
Well, just wait until the viewers come in later and see how it balloons.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't get to mention it last time, but did you go back and look at the comments coming in towards the end of the last session?
Yes.
Did you notice it was running like a ticker tape machine?
Okay, you're going to have to say that again because it was completely lagged out.
Okay. You're now.
Yes.
Okay. I said that the section was running like a ticker tape machine.
A ticker machine. Huh.
New York Stock Exchange. There are some.
I like to.
There are some live streams where it scrolls by so fast you hardly, even if a speed reader has trouble even seeing what's going on. Nobody can read it. But they have tens of thousands of viewers. You must have been about 15 or 20 messages a minute.
Really?
On that last live stream.
Well, they're not all showing.
And a lot of them look.
Yeah, for some reason, whatever reason, Mystic.
Very typical of Christians who like to hang out at. It's my computer. I'm still on the laptop.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
I'm
we're
not on the big computer.
We're my frame. I'm going strong, but you're dropping frames, and I can barely understand what you're saying.
All right.
And now you just completely dropped. Mystic, you completely dropped, my friend.
Okay.
All right. Hey, listen, until next weekend, you take care of yourself, okay?
You bet.
And we'll be praying for you and your family, all right?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Until next weekend, Mystic.
Yeah.
I think we should go ahead and end this now while we're still good. So, hey, brother, thank you again, and we'll see you next weekend, okay? You take care.
Yeah.
And God bless you. All right. Who we still got in the chat here? We got Cryptic or 151 Crypto and Jungle Ghost Survival still here. Prep your supplies and water. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Prep for supply. Be prepped. Be prepared. Because the STF is going to hit, sir. Be still alive. Yes. Hey, guys. I want to thank you for watching, coming in, and saying hi. If you all do me a favor, hit that thumbs up for me. Hit that thumbs up. It tells YouTube that this broadcast is worth showing to others. And if you haven't already, become a subscriber to our Ranch A.G.F.C. We'd love to have you part of the family. And if you want to help us out here, there's always a link in the description that you can follow to do so. Yeah, the longest live stream so far. And Mystic, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with your computer or your end, but you just completely dropped frames on me, my friend. But I want to thank you again for coming on like you have and helping out with the show and educating us and helping us with the prophecy of Revelations and being prepared, getting ourselves spiritually, physically, and spiritually for the second coming. So, my friends, yes, thumbs up. Thank you, Jungle Ghost. Yes, thank you very much. And my friends, again, Christy and I here at our Ranch Arrogant Fun channel, we value you. We love you. And this is all for you. So, again, until next time, till next weekend, we'll go start back on being inside the Bible. I know the title of the live streams we were going to get into 5 and we do this next weekend. I promise. So, until then, my friends, I want to wish everybody a good night. God bless you. Y'all know the best. Have a great day.